"Goodbye, sir," the housekeeper called from the doorway. I poked my head out of the kitchen entrance. "You're leaving already? Would you like to take some cookies with you? I'm not used to this baking thing and made too much." "Oh. You're done baking, dear? Would you like me to help you clean up?" "No thanks, I'll be fine," I replied. "All right, I'll be off." The older woman smiled warmly and then shut the door behind her. Just as I'm walking back, I hear the oven go off. Ting! I ran back to the oven, pulling on my oven mitts and opening it excitedly. A warm wave of chocolatey goodness rushed out instantly, swirling around the kitchen in a rush. Wow, I should really bake more often. I pulled out the pan of brownies and set it next to the cookies and cake to cool. What to do? There was no way my family could polish off the mountain of desserts. Maybe the neighbors would like some? I shrugged, then looked the vanilla cake up and down. It was now cool enough to ice and decorate. A bit lopsided, but that could be fixed. I carefully cut off the top to flatten the cake, splitting the resulting cylinder into 2 halves. I spread the white frosting onto the cake, making sure it was smooth and perfect. Now onto the decorating part. I really hope I don't screw this up, lest I ruin an hour of work. I turned and opened the fridge. I had already made chocolate icing for the brownies and the red velvet cookies were as good as it is. But what about the cake? I already had the vanilla frosting for it, but I would have preferred it to be more decorated. I was teaching my students how to draw flowers this past week, so maybe I could try it with food coloring? I tested it out with some spare frosting, realized it was too dark, then ended up mixing it with some frosting for a lighter color. After struggling for a while, I got a decent flower, so I started decorating the cake. I just about finished with a blossom when I heard a notification go off on my phone. I finished off the petal, dried my hands, and opened my phone, spotting the text. "Gabriella, I just picked up Will from after school and Lila from baseball practice. Is Cece out with her friends and are you off work?" Well, technically. I took the day off, but still. Yes, and yes. Cece said she's at Coral's house. Gabriella, all right, thanks. Did you water the garden? Oops. My brain wandered back to the request my wife made this morning. Oh right. I'll get on it immediately. Gabriella, okay, see you at home. I put down my phone and rushed for the back door. As I stepped out, I was greeted with gorgeous flowering trees. Spring was in full swing and the blossoms were blooming in all kinds of shades. The wind sped up in a swoosh, scattering the petals across the stone patio. I made my way past the furniture and pool towards the flower garden at the other end. I grabbed the hose and continued to spray the grass, flowers, and herbs, gradually making my way to the end of the garden where there was a wild bush blocking the corner of the yard. If I remember correctly, there were 2 trees behind the large bush, where we had strung up a hammock, perfect for an isolated afternoon nap. I haven't been there for ages, and wondered what condition it was in. The only person who frequented it was my daughter, Cece, who preferred the solace of the hammock and her books over the chaos her siblings caused in the house. I found the least dense part of the bush and pushed through, wincing slightly as the twigs and leaves sliced at my skin. We should definitely clear a path for Cece. I popped through the other end, dusted myself off with a hand, then looked up and gasped, dropping the hose. Will? But as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I knew it was untrue. The child lying unconscious in the grass was far too small and frail to be my youngest, even though they had the same unkempt brown hair. Freaked out and uncertain what to do, I edged closer and knelt next to him, gently turning him from his side to his back. To my relief, he was breathing, his chest rising and falling. Now that I could clearly see his face, it was certain he wasn't Will, although they did look around the same age. For starters, his skin was covered in a thick layer of grime and his features were far too gaunt, even for adults, much less a child. For a moment, I panicked before coming to an obvious conclusion: bring the boy inside and call the police on the non-emergency line. They would know what to do. I nodded my head, urging myself to go ahead with the plan. As I dove back into the brush, hauling the boy with me, I tried to block the branches to the best of my abilities, feeling rather relieved when I reached the other end. By the time I had struggled back to the house with him, I realized he was lighter than I originally thought, and couldn't have been more than 55 to 60 pounds, if I must estimate. I lowered him onto one of the couches in the living room, tucking a pillow under his head before grabbing the smartphone and searching up the non-emergency line. With a small sigh of relief, I plopped down on the couch, dialing it in. Jeez, who knew that would be such a long number? 911 is so simple, and the non-emergency one is literally just a normal one. My finger centimeters away from the call button, a raspy but desperate voice shouts, "Stop!"